Welcome everyone to the next episode of Nut and Allin, where we're looking at, oh my God, what do we want to talk about in the world of sports? Not just me. It's Kirk Buchner, Chris Mouradian, Dave Whitlock. How you doing, guys?
Yeah,
Doing
very
great.
good.
Yeah, great. I said it last week, say it every week. Great time of the year for on the sports calendar. Lots going on.
Well, Dave, I didn't ask you this before we went on, but do you have somebody that you want to talk about in terms of, well, because probably by the time we record this, it'll be ready, no?
Well, Kirk, as a matter of fact, we're running a little bit late here for the show, so I released it just before we started the show. But yeah,
Let's do
turning to the
this.
NFL, I think it was a great college football weekend for some of the playoffs for FCS and Army Navy game, which has been many times the Sportsman of the Week out of that game. But went back to the pros. One of the biggest games of the week was the Broncos against the Packers. Sorry, Chris. And Bo Nix really stepped up. They criticisms where he couldn't win in a big game. He'd been playing weaker teams. You know what's going to happen, but it was a back and forth game, big slugfest. Packers had the lead at halftime. Broncos surged, and four touchdown passes later, he really emerged as showing that he could be in that elite status with some of the guys like Mahomes and Allen and those guys. So looking forward to his emergence. So Bo Nix is his first Sportsman of the Week. He didn't win one in college, so his first one.
All right, very cool. Cool question for you here. So that's his first one that he's ever sort of like done. Hey, Dave, where can people find that?
Absolutely, it's on my blog. I release it weekly, Monday, Tuesday time frame, but www.lhd-on-sports.com. Front page is pretty much that. I will be releasing some other special features like Hall of Fame predictions or my Hall of Fame vote, and sometimes some playoff prediction type stuff for the NFL. But Sportsman of the Week every week, so tune in, see. You never know who's going to be named.
Oh, wait, hold on. Knock, knock.
Who's
Who's
there,
there?
Kirk?
Sherrone Moore.
Oh no,
Sherrone Moore,
run away.
who?
Sherrone Moore, and I'm a fucking dumbass.
Is he wielding any weapons?
Yes, but none of them can actually hurt him.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's get this out of here. A couple of days ago, I did a show with Evan Nolan, our good friend, and we talked about Sherrone Moore, and I was very kind. I was super kind. I don't feel like being kind right now. I really don't.
Different show, different vibe.
Yes. Yeah, he brings out the good in me, and Dave and Chris, you don't.
We're the he's the angel on your shoulder. We're the devils on your
Right.
shoulder.
Yeah. Go on, fucker. Animal House, guys. No?
That's
Okay.
right.
Let's look at Sherrone Moore in his career. 39 years old. So significantly younger than the three of us. And I think at an age where he accomplished so much where we'd say like, yay. But how did he get here? Grad assistant at Louisville in 2009 to tight ends coach in 2018 for Michigan. 5 years later, he's the offensive coordinator. And then 2024, he becomes the head coach at Michigan. And pretty big deal. Goddamn big deal. Not just because he's the head coach of Michigan, because he's the first black coach at Michigan. Bluntly, that's really not relevant to what we're going to talk about going forward. That he's white, black, Hispanic, or whatever the fuck. He's a dumbass. I don't know how to say this any other bluntly. Here's what he did, guys, and please jump in if you like. When he got the job at Michigan, he had a wife, three kids, three daughters. I encourage all of you to sort of like look at the great family picture of him, his wife, and his three daughters. Pretty sweet. Dave, you're nodding up. Like you watch.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's a tragedy as we go through this.
yeah. But rumors were going abound at the University of Michigan. So much so that Rich Eisen, who we all know, Rich Eisen in a show said that I heard 4 different people tell me this story, that there were stories where Sherrone was doing stuff with somebody he shouldn't have. So much so that the people at the University of Michigan said, all right, let's investigate. So they talked to her, they talked to him, and they couldn't prove anything. So nothing happened. We didn't know this. I didn't know this. Did either of you ever hear anything about Sherrone Moore before the season? Because I know I didn't.
No,
No,
nothing at all. It's whatever investigation, which for privacy reasons should be internal. If you're talking about it's a workplace investigation.
Right.
Wasn't led by the media per se of leaks or something. So they heard, some people said some things and they went through what they had to do and kept everything at the level it should have been kept at. But absolutely nothing of that ilk, foreshadowing for what ended up happening.
Well, as it turned out, Mr. Moore had a relationship with a lady who was 21 years old. He was 39, she was 21. And at this point, it looked like she was being stalked and harassed to the point where she was the one who went to the University of Michigan and said, this is happening. Here's the receipts. He's fired. He breaks into her home. And says, you essentially wrecked my life. I'm going to kill myself. Here's a pair of scissors and a butter knife. I bring this up because, okay, bluntly, he was never going to try and kill himself. I'm sorry, he wasn't. He was going to try to sort of like make her feel bad and use one more bit of emotional blackmail on this younger lady. Again, he's 39, she's 21. Okay? Jump in here if you think I'm wrong. And when he says, you ruined my life, you didn't ruin shit. You ruined your own life. This is embarrassing. Massively embarrassing. You're unemployed. And I've never seen this before, and maybe I'm wrong here. Has there ever been sort of like a 4-hour period where somebody was fired and arrested at the same time?
Yeah, usually it's the other way around. You get arrested, then you get fired.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
That's usually what happens. But yeah, in this case, obviously, yeah, it's the firing triggered the emotional response, the breaking and entering, the verbal blackmail, or whatever, however you want to describe it.
And for what?
It wasn't, it wasn't gonna get anything undone. So like I said, it was a response, obviously, out of emotion, whether fear, anger, a little bit of both.
Desperation. Yeah.
Desperation, yeah. But yeah, I mean, clearly it was a unhinged response, and now it's cost him. It made a bad situation even worse.
Everything. Cost him everything. And he deserves this. And as I'm looking at everything that he sort of like did, I'm trying to like think to myself, and I'm talking to like other people in my life. Well, she must have been really hot. Want to know how hot she wasn't? Hot enough that it wasn't enough to screw up your life. You had a $6 million job and 3 daughters. 3 daughters. Let's talk about the 3 daughters here. For what? And for what? You had a wife and 3 daughters, and you lost everything. And they lost everything. And I think that's a bigger show. That's the bigger thing that we should talk about. That they lost everything for his awful mistake.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Going back and I've read different phases of the article, but I mean, there was exhibition of really, some, I don't know, mental illness is a strong word that can be thrown around, but clearly, uh, the way he was behaving, there was a pattern that Michigan had recognized over the years and they had ignored. And I'll say in the corporate world that I've been in, you can't ignore if there's an employee that has a certain situation, ignoring it's not going to make it go away. And they were winning enough football games. They won the national championship. Harbaugh had his whole thing where he left, so he was kind of the heir apparent, almost. That they didn't do a nationwide search. So to your point, he basically ascended to what one could call a top 5 job in the college football, if not top 2 or 3, depending upon talk about top wins of all time. It's Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame, Texas, those type teams. And so at 39, completely successful, but clearly something was off with his, I don't know, his mental health. I can't put it any other way because the behavior exhibited afterwards, the decisions he was making with the family that they did nothing to deserve this. There's ludicrous things like it's the young lady's fault for being involved with a married man, bullshit. The guy made horrible decisions. The you know as you alluded to, I think there was an investigation, but there was not cooperation associated with it. And we've seen this before, for lack of a better scenario, maybe in Latin American baseball players, that there's some sort of abuse case and the wife doesn't want to speak up, and it just kind of goes away because there's no evidence without anybody participating in the zip. But finally, she'd had enough of whatever was going on, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and where he goes from here. The only place I hope he goes is I hope there's some way he can be involved with his family and his daughters going forward, be it married or not, but maybe speak to other people with similar situations as an advocate and say, things like, here's the mistakes I made. I hope you don't make them. We've seen that happen before with either athletes or celebrities with drug use or addiction to sex or whatever it is, that they step forward and say, hey, here's the traps I fell into. I hope you, as a young man, emerging coach, can avoid the decisions that I make. Don't do this. Don't go on OnlyFans. Don't do this behavior. Be a good husband. Go home. Value your family. That's the one that's going to give you energy. It's just a shame. It's a shame what he threw away. It's
and for nothing.
Yeah, right. For what? So, and I hope he gets the mental health counseling that he apparently needs. I haven't followed it that closely, but from everything I've seen, is he needs therapy before he does any next steps forward. And so it's tragic. The Michigan, the football part, they'll move on. They'll find a new coach, et cetera, so forth. But for him and his family is where the real tragedy is.
Yeah, I look more here and the idiocy that he did. I'm trying to think, like, have I ever seen anyone do anything this stupid?
Probably politicians I've seen from time to time do some.
Okay, athletic. Right.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah, but if you're a politician, you do that, it's okay. Moore is never going to get a job again.
Yeah.
Never. And he was partially correct when he went to that young lady and said, like, you screwed my life. Yeah, well, the part that was right was that you screwed your life.
Right.
You did that. And as I'm looking at everything that sort of like happened, I'm I'm lack of words. I don't know how you sort of like do this sort of thing and impact, forget your own life,
Yeah.
the people around you. And like for me, that's a bigger deal. Is his wife, who, as we're recording this, has sort of like gone towards each what do you call it? Like event in terms of
Public events you're talking about, or
yeah, public events, and not public events, mostly in terms of like the legal events. Sorry.
yeah.
So like,
But
sorry.
the only context I'll put this in is when somebody has a mental health crisis, let's just put it that way, whatever's going on, maybe it's the stress on the football, maybe it's the pressure of winning, maybe he's, you know, at that age he didn't have the experience to how to deal with it. Maybe there's marital problem. I'm just,
Yeah,
but
but what's his mental? Okay, but what's his mental?
so you make irrational decisions, just like other things that you hear in public society. You're like, why did somebody go off and do this thing? Well, they were clearly mentally
But did
deranged.
you hear what he
I don't want to use that
did
word.
in the game in between Michigan and Ohio State,
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, it's like I'm going to sort of like send a message to an Instagram model
right.
at halftime.
Okay.
Like, you're a retard. I'm sorry.
So I'll give you another story of somebody who was mentally ill. If you remember, several years ago, there was a female astronaut had an affair with another astronaut, and she drove from like Houston to Florida to confront some sort of third person. They were both married. I mean, you do things that don't make sense when there's something not right in your head. And I'll just leave it at that. There's something not right in his thought process, clearly, that we can't understand. So I'm not just dismissing. I said the man needs help to sort through these things. But I mean, everything you said is true. And there's nothing good happening out of this. And there's victims beyond him, and him and the school are the least of the victims. It's the family and the other stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can't put ourselves in his shoes, but
Oh, I can. He's a toolbox. And I think that we're going to go forward with the Sherrone Moore Award.
that's
So when I go, knock, knock, who's there? I'm the Sherrone Moore Award winner.
then some.
I'm kicking that around. I may not.
Be one of your end
astronaut
of the year shows where you hand out awards.
I'll tell you this, gentlemen, he will not be nominated for the United States Athletic Hall of Fame.
I know.
All right, let's move on to a bit of hockey. All right, so Dave, I know that you said like hockey's not your thing as much.
I watch the sport. I'm just not down and in on the players and the teams and such. But I'll follow along. I'll let Chris lead off, and I'll tell him where he's wrong.
All right. Well, all right. So like,
I appreciate that.
well, here's something I think you can sort of like wrap your head around. Randy Carlisle and PK Subban are the only two players who have won the Norris Trophy award and have not won or not entered the Hockey Hall of Fame. And the reason I sort of like bringing that up is there's a lot of awards where if you win it, you can pretty much assume that you're going into said Hall of Fame. The Norris Trophy is one of them. PK probably will get in one point. I think Randy Carlisle, his overall career, Chris, you could agree, you could may not agree. I think his overall career is Hall of Fame worthy. Not sure
Eh,
if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back and take a look at it. He played a lot before I was really into the sport, but he was back in the one of the last players to be able to play without having to wear a helmet. So to kind of give you an idea where his career was in our timeline here. But
And
yeah, I'd have to look
McTavish, I
back.
remember Craig McTavish didn't have to wear a helmet in
Yeah, coach,
1994.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Last player who did not have to. So
Yep.
there you go. There you go, Trivial Pursuit fans.
See?
Uh, God damn! No wonder we're gonna lose everything to the Americans. Look at that, Team Texas. But Quinn Hughes is a winner of the 2024 Norris Trophy. He's 26. Uh, was a member of the Vancouver Canucks, and he got traded. Got traded, and I'm sort of blessed to do the show because Chris is a big Vancouver fan. I don't completely hate this trade, but I hate why they had to do it, and I'm kind of pumped to sort of like talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could go on for quite a while just kind of discussing how we got here, but
Oh, please do.
yeah. So to give you an idea here, the Canucks have been a dumpster fire, tire fire, shit show. Pick your chosen derogatory description of the team for about the last 10 plus years now. Outside of the goofy season with the bubble and the 1920 season with the COVID and everything else like that, they've made the playoffs one time in 10 years. Quinn Hughes has been a full-time player for the Canucks now this has been his 7th full season with the team.
Wow.
In that time, he's had 4 different coaches. It's just been outside of the 23-24 season, just a real comedy of errors with this management where nobody wants to take the steps necessary to do the rebuild that this franchise needed since the Sedin's retired, really. And just every season it's been misstep after misstep, signing contracts that 2 months into the season you're having to attach draft picks to get off your books, which just slows everything down. You make a big trade last season, sending out one of your top offensive players in JT Miller. You get a decent return back, and then you go ahead and take that first round pick, which would have been, I think, a teens pick, and you move it on to Pittsburgh to take on a underperforming defenseman. And it's just the franchise failed Quinn Hughes, and because of that, they knew he was not going to re-sign with him when they had the opportunity this coming this offseason. He could have been eligible for an extension, but it would have been unrestricted after the next offseason. So they did what they had to do. They moved on from him at a early point in a season where that's already off the rails, where they are the 32nd team out of 32 teams in points, in wins, in everything. So they move him off to surprisingly a Western Conference team in the Minnesota Wild, who their GM is the Olympic GM, who's also the Four Nations GM. So somebody who's obviously paid attention to Quinn's career over the last few years, selecting him for these teams. So I kind of knew what kind of player he was getting. And sounds like from all the different reporting that's been out there that I've been able to listen to, was the one GM that was willing to step up and more or less meet what Vancouver was looking for as far as a return package, where they got a younger roster player, established roster player, a high-end prospect in Z William,
Can we
another
talk
prospect.
about him a bit, right?
Yeah. We can
because like Zeev is, from everything that I've learned, especially from our good friend Ron Katz,
Yeah.
because Zeev was a member of University of Denver,
Hmm.
and
National champion with them.
yeah, yeah. So I guess if I'm a Canucks fan, which I'm not,
Hmm.
uh, so which is why I'm so happy to not necessarily happy for you, but like happy that you're on this show. Where I'm wondering if you're going to get rid of Quinn Hughes, and if you think you have to get rid of Quinn Hughes, this is not a bad haul.
No, it's not. Um, you're not replacing Quinn with one player. He's that good of a player in the league. Second best defenseman, maybe best defenseman, depending on the night or the season with Cale Makar. Bouillon is a exciting young player. A lot of success in his history already between college hockey and junior programs and tournaments and things like that. So wherever he goes, he wins. At least that's the way it's been so far. Um, First real taste of full-time NHL action this year with Minnesota. He actually debuted in the playoffs last year. I mean, they thought enough of him to drop him in right into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So um, he's obviously the centerpiece of the package that came back. They added a first round pick it's coming off summer 26. So and then a fourth player, Liam Ogren, who hasn't really been able to get his footing as an NHLer yet, but is still young. Has had a very good draft pedigree when he was selected. He was a first round pick and a Swedish player that has some history playing with another Canucks prospect in Jonathan Lekkerimäki. So maybe a little bit of thought there that the two of them who had some success playing with each other before can maybe replicate that here with the team. So overall, giving up a franchise player like Quinn Hughes, you're never going to win the one for one trade battle with that. Even the four pieces for one, it's still going to be usually deemed the team that got the best player wins the trade, but it softens the blow a bit. But it's a dark day when you have to trade your franchise, your captain, away because you can't figure out how to put a winning team on the ice for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, I would say what everything you said. I joke, I disagree with you, but what you say is true. Looking at some of the stats and his pedigree, and like you said, Norris Trophy winner, it seems like a move you have to make. So you put it out there with a high asking price, liken it to maybe where the Detroit Tigers are, who are the playoff team with Tariq Skubal. They don't think they can re-sign him, so all of a sudden his name's floating around with 1 year of team control. And teams are lining up to pay him. Juan Soto a couple years ago, same thing. And again, they were coming off semi-winning teams, but it sounds like that haul was pretty good. As you were saying, the age 26, 27, I likened it to two Astros deals. One they made when they were just going downhill with Hunter Pence. They'd been past the killer bees. He was this emerging star, and it was like, well, at some point you realize that you're not going to be able to utilize him for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And then he's in his 30s. You'll probably have to pay him a ton of money to keep him around anyway. Why don't flip him for some prospects? And then even this last offseason, a team that was coming off 7, 8 straight playoff appearances, the Astros traded Kyle Tucker to the Cubs because they could see it coming. He's 27, 28 years old, probably the best, highest value player on free agency. They also let Bregman go. They had Jordan Alvarez locked up, so we'll take him off the table. But they trade him for a Cam Smith, a young Cubs prospect that's 21, a super college player, a guy with all this upside. That's how you rebuild. I think Vancouver sounds like Vancouver needed a refresh. They weren't going to go anywhere with one defenseman and crap around them. So it's tough to take as a fan, but sounds like a good deal, and they got a decent return, as you said, Chris. You'll probably look back and say, well, these four guys, not one of them is equivalent. Pair a couple of them together, maybe you could. But what else are you going to do?
Right, right.
Besides,
Well, I
you got to
don't
do
think there's
something for the
been.
future at this point.
Okay, well, Chris, I mean, like, do you think that he was ever going to resign? Because I,
No, he had made it clear, I guess, back in
oh,
summer that he was not going to, and kind of around American Thanksgiving, the
okay.
word
Thank
was
you
put
for
out.
saying American Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't want to confuse there.
As opposed to Australian Thanksgiving, which is like in April or some
Oi,
crap.
oi, oi.
But yeah, so they knew that they were that the clock was ticking on his time here. The sooner they can move him, the more time the receiving team would have with them. So Minnesota's
Bigger
got
return.
at least two cup runs with him guaranteed. Um, Depending on what they can talk him into beyond that. So it's a little bit of a risk with Minnesota because he has not agreed to any kind of extension beyond what he's already signed for. But we'll see where it goes for them. I mean, that Central Division is very top heavy now with Colorado, who's clearly the number one team in the NHL,
Mm-hmm.
but they you got Dallas and now Minnesota kind of nipping at their heels. It's an arms race there or a skates race or whatever you want to call it, and um, this obviously makes that a very interesting division and really kind of I think will come April will highlight just how fucked up the NHL playoff system is, where you're going to have two of these teams playing each other in the first round, as opposed to getting a chance to get out of that first round, build up some second round matchups. Just what the hell are you guys doing there?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be exciting to see what Quinn can do. He already dumped a goal in his first game
Saw
with
that.
Minnesota, and then William scored a goal with Vancouver in his first game. So they're kind of on pace with each other there.
Could be a win-win. Maybe a little bit of new blood in Vancouver is going to get
Yeah,
them off of the dump.
yeah, they need a couple of more pints of new blood there to really get them going though.
All right. So I have one more thing that I want to ask you guys here. So Philip Rivers has made his comeback. I was there. I went to the game. I'm living here in Seattle, and it was fun. It was fun. And as I'm sort of like watching around, talking to people here, like within the stadium and whatnot, I kind of felt that they were overestimating, or not overestimating, just they felt it was better than it was. It's like, and I wondered, like, okay, is the bar that low that okay, he's not screwing up?
I think
Good enough?
the expectation I think was much higher by from maybe the fan base than what the coaches expected,
Not
but
by me. I thought he was gonna like stink the shit up.
I well maybe, but I'm looking at it basically just going I just hope he doesn't get hurt. Um I kind of like as the game wore on and they were actually very close to pulling off the upset win there. I was like, oh, hey, this would be just a storybook ending. Let's give him that win there. But unfortunately, the ball didn't fall his way. But yeah, coach obviously knew what kind of game plan he needed to put together to keep the team in the game. The defense played their asses off for him, trying to keep them in there, especially against a strong Seattle team on the road there. So
Mhm.
it's put it on the coaches for just a hell of a job getting that game that team to the point where they could keep that game to a last second field goal to decide it.
Yeah, yeah. I mentioned to you guys in the Houston market that happened to be the afternoon game they put into my region as opposed to the Packers Broncos game, and it was interesting from the start. I mean, I think it was a feel good story. Here's a grandfather coming out of retirement. There was his son and brother on the sidelines on the front row or in the crowd, and that was my thought. You said about the injuries. At 44. I think even one of the commentators said, like, look, he even got knocked down and got up by himself. It becomes more difficult after
I
those
don't know what
ages.
we're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because that's the thing. It's not hard to me. Well, it's not easy, but I can see a 44-year-old sitting back in the pocket. He doesn't have to scramble. He's protected well. He can throw the ball. He had a little bit of velocity off of his fastball, but that's okay. But you talk about a team that has one of the best league running backs. You have a team that has one of the best tight ends. That's kind of geared for somebody who doesn't need to necessarily throw downfield to a streaker. And they managed it well. I mean, the offense wasn't that good, to your point, Kirk. It wasn't like they were doing Bo Nix going up and down the field, but it was enough. They commented on TV, things along the lines of somehow the defense is better. Like the defense has been horrible, and he shows up, but the defense plays better because the Seahawks didn't even score a touchdown. It was just field goal after field goal. The Seahawks only had 80 something yards in the first half. It was kind of a defensive struggle, which played right into Indianapolis's hands. But it was fun to see him sling it around. I mean, it felt like a throwback game. You're talking about a guy that we watched, 5, 6 years ago. I did look it up. Not that you asked, but he was a Sportsman of the Week in 2017 on Thanksgiving Day. They dogged the Cowboys like 26-7. And that's his only Sportsman of the Week time. So, if he played well, he was on the short list, but there was clearly nothing in his performance that led them to victory. I was, and back to the game itself, I was shocked that some guy the Colts signed off the waiver wire from the Saints was able to just knock down a 60-yarder like it was an extra point to give them the lead. But then they allowed, too much time for the Seahawks kicker, who probably could have been the Sportsman of the Week with 6 field goals, including a game winner. But it was fun to watch. It'll be interesting. I know being in the AFC South, almost said Central. It's a nip and tuck battle between the Jaguars, Texans, and Colts. The Colts have the Niners, Jaguars, and Texans left. So it's potentially 3 playoff teams. I think the Jaguars have the easier schedule. The Texans have, as the aforementioned Colts, the Raiders, and the Chargers left. But anyway, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He's already been named the starter next week in a decision that shocks no one because he did nothing to lose it. But and I thought, I mean, the Seahawks was going to be a tough match. It's one of the best defenses. They really beat the crap out of the Texans this year for sure. So I was surprised he could hang in there, get up from the hits, but also with a game of tape on him, that's a whole nother thing. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to throw short? Are they going to throw long? So now, a defense like the 49ers, Jaguars, and especially the Texans are going to have some tape on him. So it's gonna be tough. If they won 2 of the next 3, I'd be surprised. If they won 1 of the next 3, I might also be surprised. It's going to be tough, but it's fun to watch him play, and he seemed to be in good spirits, and it was good for the fans.
I guess just sort of like being there, I'm wondering. Well, first off, it was fun. It was also like the one great thing about being in Seattle is the fans who come here. Regardless of who's coming here, Seattle is a great team to sort of like watch at home, but people want to come here, and it was a lot of fun. I got to like talk to a lot of Colts fans, and it was great. But saying that, let's just talk about the Hall of Fame because that's what we do here mostly. Rivers is going to play again, as you said. What worries me for him, or not worries me, I don't really care, to be honest, is he's now sort of like behind chronologically a lot of quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger is now ahead of him. Matt Ryan now ahead of him. Russ Wilson will be ahead of him. Well, or tied. Is his Hall of Fame case impacted badly by what he just did? And I think it is.
I would say it's not. Yeah, I think this is more of a experiment than like the Russell Wilson collapse that we talked about a few weeks ago. Now, if you're going to start to stack them up against other contemporaries, it's a challenging environment. There's a lot of good guys, a lot of good numbers that won a lot of games, and he, wasn't able to win the Super Bowl or even make a Super Bowl. But that doesn't change with this. I think it's neutral, or maybe just adds a little bit of a mystique to him. But so time will tell.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Dave there. I don't think this really changes much other than his timeline. So as you mentioned, a couple of guys get ahead of him here, but that could actually work a little bit in his favor because it'll clear some of the quarterbacks out of the way, so he's not on the ballot with Roethlisberger or Brady when those guys come up too. So, it may allow him to compete more head to head directly with the Mannings, the Ryans, and Russell Wilson when they're all on the ballot together, likelihood. And maybe make things a little clearer between those guys, whether one or none of them really stand out. So I don't think it's going to hurt him in any way. I don't, help would just be that it shifts his timeline past some of the quarterbacks that are more likely to be selected than some of the others.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm looking at the other way, but we'll see. We will see. And congrats to Philip Rivers, who just, from everything I've read, wanted to have fun. He had fun. And that is awesome.
Yeah, he looked like he was having fun and enjoying it, and his teammates were surrounded around him. He gave that little weird pump 90s dance after scoring. It was a little awkward.
That's all he knows.
Right. Surprised he didn't try to do the moonwalk or something.
Yeah.
The crocodile dance.
No, it was great. It was so much fun to sort of like watch and to be around some Colts fans who just sort of embrace it for what it was. With that, is there any more topics we need to go through here?
Just gonna mention the NFL giveth, the NFL taketh. We lose Mahomes and Micah Parsons
that was brutal.
on the same day, and just for me up here in Wisconsin, it was one of those weekends. He had high hopes, especially at halftime or coming out of half there. And then the literal bottom just fell out of the game, and who knows what the rest of the season holds ahead of him. So just tough to see for the NFL. I mean, you want to see the best players play. You want, and so many of them have had season-ending injuries this year. And Philip Rivers, I mean, the reason he's there is because Daniel Jones, who's having a hell of a season, tore up his Achilles. Yeah. So just, wish they could figure the injury stuff out. I mean, obviously it's a rough game. These things happen. It's happened in the past. It just seems like this year it's hitting a lot of the superstars more so than before. So
I would add to that. I believe all three of those, the Jones, the Mahomes, and the Packers, they're all non-contact injuries, right? Like they were all just, I mean, Mahomes was nursing a knee injury, so you might just think there was just something there. But so they've tried to regulate, don't hit the quarterback here, don't do hip drops, don't hit the guy late, don't hit in the head. But big guys moving. There was, playing the Texans game where the returner for the Cardinals was carted off on a stretcher, and it looked a very innocuous play. It was an ordinary return. He came in, a few guys hit him from either side. He went down pretty normally, and the next thing you know, he wasn't moving for 5-10 minutes, and it's it's like it's just crazy. To Chris's point, there's only so much you can make rules versus things happen, but it's definitely happening more. I think we can't deny that. But the Parsons and Mahomes not for the playoffs so much, but the Parsons injuries, it's an NFC changer because that defense is different without him, and in a very competitive environment with a lot of good teams with good quarterbacks.
Yep. It's just obviously that's probably the biggest thing is is how much that changes the playoff picture in the NFC.
Yeah.
Just that one injury.
And that's football.
Yeah.
And
It
there's
is.
not much we can do about it. We can accept it. We can do whatever we can, sort of like.
Yeah. I mean,
But
they've done a good job cleaning up some of the dirty. You go back to the 70s and 80s. I mean, there was guys just quarterbacks getting decapitated legally. But they've probably maybe even overcorrected for that, but it's still a tough big man's game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Take a look at everything here we do at Not in Hall of Fame. Thank you all for sort of what you've helped us do at the United States Athletic Hall of Fame, www.theUSAHOF.com. Means a lot to us, and there's so much more coming. Thank you all. Take care, everybody.